Yu Yu Hakusho. You know it? You love it. At least I do anyway. It's one of my favorite classic manga, I guess, if you can call it that, classic manga series of all time, written by the legendary Togashi, same creator as Hunter x Hunter. But did you know that recently Netflix released their highly acclaimed, highly anticipated live-action version of the classic Yu Yu Hakusho series? And as the title says, if you can read it, I just finished watching it like 5 minutes ago. So as a massive Togashi fan, as a massive Yu Yu Hakusho fan, and as a connoisseur of live-action anime adaptations, your boy definitely had to check it out. And let me just cut straight to the chase. I thought the Yu Yu Hakusho Netflix live action was pretty decent. About a year ago, I made a video on this very channel where I found out about the news that Netflix was going to be adapting Yu Yu Hakusho into a live action, and that video was not exactly positive. In fact, if I remember correctly, I was very scared, very disappointed, very worried that Japan was once again going to ruin a perfectly fine anime and manga series and turn it into something that will make the fans cry in agony. But you know what? Maybe it's time for us to actually throw away the whole stigma of live-action animes being the biggest piles of doo-doo that the visual media entertainment industry can offer to anime fans, because the Yu Yu Hakusho live-action was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Am I saying that it's like the best live action out there? Absolutely not. It definitely had some glaring problems, but it also had a lot of great parts about it as well. So this is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So buckle up, hit that like button, and subscribe, my Yu Yu Hakusho fans. I never do that in my videos. I'm just excited to talk about Yu Yu Hakusho for once on this goddamn channel. So for those of you who don't know, the Yu Yu Hakusho live action anime series is in fact a series, not a movie, and the first biggest surprise that I got when I started to dive into the live action was that it is only 5 episodes, which is incredibly short considering the fact that the previous One Piece live action Netflix, which I did a whole video on this channel, links in the description, as well as the Cowboy Bebop Netflix adaptation, which I also did a review of on this channel, were both around 10 episodes. Let's just say this 5 episode run is definitely, I think, the biggest problem that Yu Yu Hakusho live action has put itself into, and it's the fact that it is very quick, very straight to the point, which, look, if you've never seen Yu Yu Hakusho before, is probably a better way to consume it rather than having to read through 30-something volumes of the manga. But at the same time, much like the Dune live action adaptation from the original Frank Herbert book, you are cutting out a lot of detail. Sure, not all of the detail is going to be crucial for you to understand, but there are a lot of details that definitely add a bit of weight to whatever the next step in the progression of the story is going to be that you are watching. And let's just say, Yu Yu Hakusho definitely cut corners in its storytelling. I mean, a fucking ton of corner cutting to just get to, I guess, the good parts of the story. So let me explain Yu Yu Hakusho for those of you who have never even seen or heard about Yu Yu Hakusho. It stars a kid, Urameshi Yusuke, 14 years old, at least he is in the manga. In the live action, he starts off as a 17-year-old, so already that's different, who is a massive delinquent, skips school, smokes cigarettes, is just a bad student all around, gets into fights all of the time. But then one day, when a truck decides to drive through, and about to hit a small child, Yusuke, in an act of valiance, decides to save the child. In return, he gets hit by the truck and he dies. He becomes a spirit and is then recruited by Botang, who is this like yokai kind of girl who is, I guess, like an underling of the great demon lord Emma. And she basically says, hey, do you want to come back to life? You did something that not even the demon was expecting you to do. In return, though, we're going to give you some powers, and you are going to be what is referred to as a spiritual detective, or I guess that's the direct translation of it. I'm going to struggle a bit with some of the English terminology because I did watch the live action Japanese, I did read the manga, did watch the anime in Japanese, so apologies if I don't exactly know like the English terminologies of all the Yu Yu Hakusho things, because there's a fuckload of terminology and I don't remember all of it. So the beginning of the live action starts off pretty unassumingly, exactly the same as the manga, but already this is where the live action decides to just skip a whole bunch of stuff and just get straight to the meat of it all. Because in the live action, the reason why Yusuke, I guess, dies at the beginning is, yes, as a result of, a truck, hitting him. But in the manga, it's never really stated why exactly the truck was losing control. It was just like a bad driver or something. Whereas in the live action, as you guys watch in the first episode, a little yokai insect invades the truck driver's brain. He goes aggro, starts to go haywire, and basically just loses all control of himself. So already right then and there, the main like story point of the live action is actually intermixing with a point in the story that involves these like yokai insects, which happens quite a little bit later. I'm talking like a couple of volumes later. Because in the original manga, I guess Togashi didn't quite know which direction he wanted to take Yu Yu Hakusho, and it actually started off more as kind of like a episodic, self-contained, I guess, coming of age story. There's actually a bunch of side stories of Yusuke becoming a ghost, and then him, having learnt from, I guess, his past life and the values of life as this ghost figure, as this spirit that is still stuck on Earth, to basically help random people to overcome their fears and stuff like that. Which in the live action, they just decided, nah, that shit's boring. It didn't even last that long anyway. Let's just skip all of that and just get straight into the action, the horror, supernatural action side of things that Yu Yu Hakusho finally decides to set its gears towards. Which, look, to be honest, I wasn't really, like, upset about that. If anything, like, again, the first couple of volumes of like the coming of age episodic stuff in Yu Yu Hakusho, in retrospect, does feel a little bit out of place, especially once you know how the story actually progresses. But obviously, at the time that the manga was serializing, not a lot of people knew which direction it was going to go. And it actually happens quite often, especially in Shonen Jump. I mean, look in manga series like Katekyo Hitman Reborn. It started off as like a comedy, action series. And then later on, it really turned into just like a hardcore supernatural action series. Same thing with Dragon Ball as well. It started off more as a comedy series until it became the Dragon Ball that we all know and love today. So I think it was actually a good idea on the writing team for the Netflix live action to just like get rid of that, and because it really is in the long run kind of an unimportant and unassuming detail. They basically just nailed down all the important parts. They introduced Kuwabara, who's going to be a very important and loved character in the Yu Yu Hakusho franchise. He's one of my favorite characters, as well as Keiko, the childhood friend, as well as Yusuke's mom. But then episode 1 goes right into the, I guess, next progression of this manga arc, which is the whole like yokai insects coming to take over, controlling human bodies, and Yusuke starting to learn his fighting style with things like his ray gun and just like, just basically the whole fighting off yokais kind of thing. Which was an honestly surprising moment in the live action, considering the fact that the choreography and everything was actually really good. Like, I always get afraid when it comes to, ever since the Parasite live action, I've always been afraid of these like yokai CGI infused like fight choreographies and stuff like that, because a lot of them just seem really like stiff and lifeless. But this one, the Yu Yu Hakusho one, felt more like, the fight scenes in like Rurouni Kenshin or Gintama. They actually were choreographed and they actually looked like pretty decent, and it was like actually exciting to watch. So already by the end of episode 1, I can kind of tell the direction that they're deciding to go in when it comes to the pacing of the Yu Yu Hakusho story, because obviously there is going to be, a big fight at the end, and in my head I was like, let me guess, they're just going to end it at the Dark Tournament arc with the Toguro fight. Which, by the way, if you've never seen Yu Yu Hakusho and you don't want to be spoiled on it, please go and read it before you continue this video, because I will be going into spoiler territory. So this is your last warning. So I knew for a fact that they were probably going to end it off in the Toguro fight, and sure enough, by like episode 3, Toguro and like Sakyo and like all these like pretty important characters in the Dark Tournament arc actually appear. You see Bui, you see Karasu, you see Toguro's little brother or older brother, I guess, who looks absolutely fucking wild in this live action. I mean, he's supposed to be like a little fucking creature that, stands on the shoulder, or I guess like hugs onto the shoulder of the younger Toguro, but man, in live action, it just looked so fucking goofy. Every time he came on screen, I just couldn't help but laugh. But later on in the fights, he was definitely one of the most terrifying performances and uses of CGI. So I'll give them that. And then you get introduced to, obviously, the main cast. You get to see Hiei, you get to see Kurama. And what I thought was interesting was the fact that they included the Gouki fight, which I didn't think they were actually going to do, because I figured from episode 1 they were just going to go straight into like the meat of the Dark Tournament arc, but I didn't know how they were going to like transition into that. And interestingly enough, they used the Gouki fight, the Yusuke versus Gouki, as like a crux to like push the story into the beginnings of the Dark Tournament arc, which I guess was like, okay, like I legitimately forgot about Gouki. I was like, who the fuck is this Red Devil guy again? And then I had to look it up. I was like, oh, it's Gouki, yeah, because he's just like kind of so unassuming. He's not exactly the most like memorable like villain character in early Yu Yu Hakusho, but I do admit it was actually a pretty decent attempt to like push the story again towards the Dark Tournament arc, because that's the part of Yu Yu Hakusho that everyone remembers and everyone absolutely loves. Like, you know, with Hunter x Hunter, how everybody has like their favorite arcs. Like some people say it's Greed Island, some people say it's Chimera Ant. With Yu Yu Hakusho, it's pretty safe to say that like 98% of Yu Yu Hakusho readers will say the Dark Tournament arc is the best part of Yu Yu Hakusho, and you know, I'm definitely in that camp for sure. Although there are some interesting story progressions before the Dark Tournament arc is definitely when things really start to kick off, with some of the most epic fights, with some of the most epic matchups, with some of the craziest fucking story progressions you've ever seen. I mean, there is a reason why the Budokai arc in Dragon Ball and the Dark Tournament arc in Yu Yu Hakusho are considered some of the greatest tournament arcs in all of manga and anime. But weirdly enough, with the live action Yu Yu Hakusho, it wasn't exactly like a tournament arc. They took elements of the tournament arc, but didn't actually like do a tournament style with it. Rather, they set up like the meat of what makes up the tournament arc, and then pose the fights in a way that wasn't within the confines of like an organized tournament like it was in the manga and anime. Like Yukina and Keiko get captured by Sakyo because, you know, Togoro's younger brother wants to really fight Yusuke, so they use them as bait, and then everybody, you know, Kurama owes Yusuke his life, and Hiei obviously wants to go rescue his sister, Yukina. Kuwabara just wants to tag along because he's fucking Kuwabara and we love him for it. So they go to Kubikukuri Island and they're like, give us back our shit and we're gonna fuck you up. And so what happens is it creates this kind of interesting dynamic where you have some of the most memorable fights in all of Yu Yu Hakusho. I'm talking Hiei versus Bui. I'm talking Kurama versus Karasu. I'm talking, you know, Kuwabara versus Toguro older brother. All kind of happening at the same time. Each one of them have their progressions, but it's not told singularly like it is in the Dark Tournament arc in the manga and anime, but rather all kind of at the same time. So rather than having to focus on just one fight, you're having to focus on like multiple fights at the same time, which I think isn't as effective as it was in the manga and anime, personally speaking. What I really enjoyed about the Yu Yu Hakusho tournament arc was the fact that each of the fights were self-contained within the progression of the story. Like when it was Hiei versus Bui, that was the only point of focus. When it was Kurama versus Karasu, that was the only point of focus. You didn't have to like juggle your mind around with all of these fights happening at the same time. So it made the fights that much more interesting and that much more engaging for the reader. Like say for example with the Kurama and Karasu fight, like in the manga it was just the Kurama and Karasu fight. So you could be like, okay, so Karasu has the ability to create little implosions with his spiritual you know, powers. What is Kurama going to do? Oh, he's going to turn back into a fox and become one of the sexiest characters Togashi has ever written. In the Hiei versus Bui fight, Bui is like kind of overpowering him with his like sheer power. So what is Hiei going to do? He's going to take off that motherfucking bandage and do a Jao Insatsu Kokuryuha on that motherfucker, burn him to a crisp. And let's just say, you know, those kinds of like very sick glow-ups and power-ups of guys like Hiei and Kurama were just so fucking cool to see. Like, I was hoping they would not fuck up Hiei's Joe Insatsu Kokuryuha, but it looked fucking badass. It actually looked sick. They actually pulled it off with the CGI. But, you know, this is live action, and unfortunately, not all of our fantasies could be fulfilled. For one, in the final Toguro versus Yusuke fight, if you guys know, you know, both Toguro and Yusuke actually kind of transform near the end of the fight. Toguro does it first. He unleashes all of his powers and becomes one of the scariest fucking villains in all of shonen anime. And the CGI in that was like, it was a little bit weird because I guess they had to CGI the actor's face as well onto this like monstrosity, so it kind of was a little bit uncanny valley at times, but you know, it served the purpose. The actor was good, so I'll take what I can get. But what the fuck happened with Yusuke? Yusuke does one of the most epic transformations in that fight, you know, after Toguro, you know, levels up and becomes the most terrifying thing ever, you know, attempts to kill Kuwabara, and then I was waiting for the Yusuke transformation with the long hair and the hole in his fucking stomach, and it didn't fucking happen. That was the one thing I was looking forward to. I was like, I want to see Yusuke transform, dog. You could do it with Kurama. You showed Joe Insatsu Kokuryuha with Hiei. Why couldn't you do it with Yusuke? I guess maybe because the costume department thought that it was just going to look a little bit weird because, you know, he does look very, very anime with his transformation, especially with the long hair and, you know, the no shirt and everything, but they did it with Kurama. Yoko Kurama looks completely different to regular Kurama, so how could they do it with Kurama but not with Yusuke? What the fuck? Also, another, I guess, complaint that I had with the whole Toguro and Yusuke thing was the lack of detail given towards Toguro. There is a reason why Toguro, little brother Toguro, not the older brother Toguro, the little brother Toguro is such an interesting character in Yu Yu Hakusho, because he obviously, you know, has the demeanor of this absolutely evil motherfucker with no remorse and everything, but later on when you find out in the manga, he used to be a human who basically sold his soul to become the demonic motherfucker that he is in the manga. And there is this one scene in the manga and anime that solidified Togashi as one of the most interesting story writers in modern manga. And it's this very simple scene of Toguro loving orange juice. There's a couple of scenes where, you know, he's talking with Sakyo, or he's just like hanging out with Sakyo, and when Sakyo asks, hey, what do you want to drink? Do you want to drink anything? He always says, give me an orange juice with ice. That might seem really non-important detail, but what that one characteristic trait does to Toguro is it humanizes him in kind of a hilarious way. It kind of tells you that somewhere within this demonic looking figure and this absolutely demonic, relentless personality, there is some kind of human quality still left inside of him. And that really plays a strong role at the end of the Toguro and Yusuke fight, when, you know, after Toguro gets absolutely annihilated by the gigamassive ray gun that Yusuke is able to shoot out, and he goes down towards hell, he meets up with Genkai, who, you know, is the master that taught, you know, Yusuke and Kuwabara, you know, how to use their spirit powers and stuff like that, and they're also like, you know, they were friends in the past life, I guess. And this idea of like having this kind of hint towards somewhere inside Toguro having this like human emotion, having this human remorse, this tiny sliver of empathy and sympathy towards anyone who attempts to like go up against him, is what makes this really interesting villain in an otherwise very non-human setting, if that makes sense. But did they actually end up doing that in the live action? No. I was waiting for the scene where Toguro asked for a goddamn orange juice. I was waiting for him to sip that shit down. Not even the O in OJ was mentioned, which by the end of it all really kind of made the whole like remorse talk, you know, as that he has with Genkai, that whole like remorse ideology that Toguro supposedly had in his entire, you know, mind the entire time, it kind of feels out of place. It feels like it came out of nowhere. Like, sure, he does the little spiel, you know, when he does power up and is about to kill Kuwabara, of the whole like, you know, oh, you know, I used to be a human, and you know, I have to live with remorse, and you know, this is blah blah blah, this is what has become to a person who ends up going down that route. But that that whole thing also really comes out of nowhere. Right up until that happens, you don't really know about Toguro. All you know is that he's just an evil motherfucker who kills Genkai and then wants to fight Yusuke because he's bored, which I feel is just kind of a waste of potential for such an interesting character like Toguro. And I'm only going this nitpicky about Toguro because I genuinely do fucking love Toguro. Like, Toguro is one of the characters that is beloved by all Yu Yu Hakusho fans, and again, is one of the most interesting villains in any shonen manga arc, in my opinion. The lack of extra room within these 5 episodes, and just like the lack of, I guess, pacing, just kind of whittled Toguro down into just like another bad guy in the world of Yu Yu Hakusho, in the world of live action anime, and I thought that was just kind of a waste of opportunity. Other than that though, you know, the CGI was decent for the most part. The choreography was pretty good, and again, like, instead of the whole like tournament arc thing happening, you know, the whole betting system with Sakyo and Koenma just kind of having like, yeah, I'll bet my life on this whole thing, rather than it being in a tournament setting, I thought was a kind of nice change of pace. Like, they actually managed to take the elements of the Dark Tournament arc and make it work outside of a tournament setting, which I thought was like pretty decent. So yeah, bottom line is I quite enjoyed the Yu Yu Hakusho live action, which is fucking shocking because, again, if you remember the video I made a year ago when, you know, they first announced it, I thought for sure they were gonna fuck it up, but hey, I guess Netflix is like learning from their mistakes. So far, they've nailed the One Piece live action, and now they've nailed the Yu Yu Hakusho live action. Sure, could it have been better with more episodes? Like, they could have gone more into detail about little bits and pieces and added more interesting story elements of the Yu Yu Hakusho manga by just adding a few more episodes. Sure, maybe there was a budget restraint, or they ran out of time, or they rushed it out. I don't know what the option or the reason is for going with the option of 5 episodes, but it did say season 1, so maybe we'll get all the other stuff after the Dark Tournament arc in a potential season 2. But if not, I do genuinely think that this was pretty good. You're hearing this correctly. Yu Yu Hakusho live action was pretty damn good. And let's also just say that I think within the past year, this whole stigma of live action anime being absolute garbage pieces of doo-doo is kind of slowly starting to wither away with every passing new adaptation. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just a coincidence that One Piece and Yu Yu Hakusho just happened to nail it, but, you know, even in the past, Rurouni Kenshin, Gintama, these were also pretty good live-action adaptations, in my opinion. But, of course, you know, it's not going to get the universal praise that I think the Yu Yu Hakusho live-action deserves to get, because anime fans are some of the most pedantic and nitpicky people on the planet. There's probably some like hardcore Yu Yu Hakusho fans that are going to watch this live action and just absolutely rip it to shreds, but which is, you know, it's fine. You do you, man. Like, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But for me personally, as a massive Yu Yu Hakusho fan, I thought it was surprisingly good. So if you've never seen Yu Yu Hakusho, I don't know if I would exactly recommend that you go into this live action immediately, but I also don't think it's impossible to watch without having consumed previous Yu Yu Hakusho material. If anything, I think it's kind of going to work in the same way as the One Piece live action, where if you've never heard of Yu Yu Hakusho, you might actually watch this 5-episode series and be interested to read the manga or watch the anime. And if that is the case, then please go and do that, because the Yu Yu Hakusho manga is fucking fantastic. So yeah, that was just my little review of the Yu Yu Hakusho live action adaptation. Let me know what you guys think about it if you did watch it. What are some things that could have been improved? What were some of your favorite or least favorite parts about the live action if you did watch it? And now I'm in the mood to go reread the Yu Yu Hakusho manga, so I think I'm going to go and do that. But thanks for watching, guys. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash my face right here, subscribe to the channel. Let's keep making big channel number go bigger. Over here next to my head, there's a couple more videos you can check out if you enjoyed this one. Links to my social media as well as my Patreon to support me directly. And nonsense, we got some sick clothes still out. We're going to bring out more. Link in the description. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.